Hello, and thank you for choosing to listen to this podcast. This is actually our first podcast on our new Catapult PR channel, so I hope you will find it interesting and useful. We have to start somewhere, and we hope that we can offer something to those of you who find it more convenient to listen to audio than to see things on screen. However, you will be able to find the content of this Visitor Attraction podcast within our blog and news area, so you will effectively have a transcript of what you are listening to here. Hopefully these two formats will give you the best of both worlds. As you will have seen, the topic for this podcast is visitor attraction marketing, with a particular emphasis on PR for your visitor attraction. This has a natural bias towards the UK, as that is where we are based, but hopefully some of the insight that we are offering can translate into other tourism markets in other countries. Before we get into the detail of this podcast, it might be useful for me to tell you a little bit about Catapult PR and its background in visitor attraction marketing. This is an area in which we've been working for nearly 20 years, and in two different ways. At times we have worked directly with visitor attractions, promoting them through PR and assisting their marketing and content creation programs. At other times, we have worked with attractions indirectly as part of either a tourism campaign for a destination or whilst handling a campaign for a particular theme within tourism, such as farm tourism or heritage tourism. For instance, for 2 years, we handled PR for the Northwest Farm Tourism Initiative, and for 6 years, we worked with attractions through the South Lakes Tourism Action Group in Cumbria. We have therefore worked with a very wide range of visitor attractions, from those with ties to William Wordsworth to those focused on William Shatner and the world of Star Trek. We've also handled PR for those attractions that are very seasonal, such as maze mazes, to others that are open all day, every day. And whilst we are based in Lancashire, England, it is fair to say that 90% of our tourism PR experience and visitor attractions experience has been conducted in other counties, as far afield as Gloucestershire and Lincolnshire. So as we headed towards our 21st birthday, I thought it would be kind of appropriate for us to really bring some new insight to the table when it comes to UK visitor attractions. In my own mind, these fall into two main camps: London and then the rest of the country, but then what doesn't? But is that really the case, or is that just a misconception? We also wanted to know what challenges UK visitor attractions face right now and what they could be doing better. As we sit here today, 2019 could be a big year for the staycation due to all the Brexit uncertainty. So what could UK visitor attractions be doing better? Also, what are they doing well that they could capitalise on to a greater extent? Where are the opportunities? And what are the pitfalls? What exactly is in the mind of the British visitor right now? And should UK visitor attractions be worried? Before we start looking at the research we commissioned, and by the way, that was through respected research and media company Gorkana, let's just consider what another research organisation, Mintel, is saying this year, given the weather that we enjoyed in the UK in 2018. David Walmsley, Senior Leisure Analyst at Mintel, has said, "A long hot summer gave welcome impetus for the UK visitor attractions market in 2018, but it is the economic climate that remains the strongest determinant of the sector's size and shape, particularly through its influence on consumers' holiday choices." As I said, with the current uncertainty around Brexit, it is our belief at Catapult PR that there will be more people enjoying a staycation this year, and so it is vital that visitor attractions understand their prospective customer well. But this podcast is not just about the short-term actions that visitor attractions should take, but about longer-term planning and changes in emphasis, attitude, and even visitor attraction displays in some cases. We are splitting this podcast into 2 episodes to make it easier to consume and give you a chance to focus on what we have discovered in manageable chunks. In this first podcast, we will be looking at the following topics. Number 1, value for money and visitor cynicism. Number 2, joint ticketing by visitor attractions and attitudes towards it. Number 3 will be about the impact of petrol prices on visits by car. Number 4, the importance of local residents to your visitor attraction. And number 5, perceptions of your attraction. And finally, number 6 is what we are calling attractiveness plus access for all. So let's start with money and value for money. And let's consider the scenario that exists right now within the UK economy. Firstly, budgets are tight and people are very conscious about spend. Also, as we all know, people cannot really be fooled by smoke and mirror pricing, and that is exactly what our survey discovered. Nearly a third of those who took part in the Gorkana survey that Catapult PR commissioned, 29% to be precise, feel that UK visitor attractions lure them in with cheap tickets and then charge the earth for food, drink and extras. Those feeling this most keenly are female visitors, who are your harshest critics on this point if you are a visitor attraction. The region in which most people are cynical about cheaper admissions prices and then inflated prices for extras is Greater London, where a huge 43% feel this kind of pricing takes place. The South East, South West and East Anglian interviewees also echoed this sentiment to a larger degree than those from other areas. This may reflect higher prices charged in those regions, particularly as those in the North East were nowhere near as concerned, with only 1 in 20 feeling duped by cheaper entrants and higher cost extras. However, the really worrying point about responses to this question can be seen in the fact that 3/4 of those aged 35 to 44 and 62% of those aged 45 to 54 are cynical about this type of pricing. Given that these are likely to be the age groups in which the majority of parents can be found, these are worrying statistics. I would suggest that this opens up the opportunity for innovative thinking and action to reduce the price of extras. Do your brochures and money spinners really need to be priced so highly? Could you offer meal deals? Could you reduce entrance prices further on certain days of the week? Or even offer free entrance in the off-season if you know you will make income up through your food and souvenirs. Above all, really focus on what represents value for money and how you can define that within your attraction. Could you offer experiences on which a price cannot be placed, such as holding a snake, feeding animals, having a Q&A session with the museum curator or the head gardener, or handling something that is centuries old? My personal tip is for you to get into Instagram mode and visualise what people would love to share on this channel if they could do so whilst at your attraction. Once you have these images in mind, can you frame a value for money experience around them, something that is over and above your standard offer? It really is that, wow, I can do that there. And that's the sort of thing that we need to get if we want to overcome ill feeling about admissions prices. If we move on to the second theme within this podcast, we're looking at joint ticketing. Our Catapult PR survey found that 22% of people feel that UK visitor attractions should group together to offer joint tickets that cost them less than would be the case if they bought single tickets for each attraction. Again, more women are price conscious and would like to see this happening, with 1/4 of women giving a thumbs up for joint ticketing as opposed to 20% of men. Offering joint ticketing options may seem impossible at first glance if you have no logical connection to another attraction. The issue can often be that visitor attractions see that logical connection as having to be shared ownership or a similar experience, whereas they perhaps need to think geographically or in a way that presents an itinerary of interest. It is easy to use accounting systems and administrative issues as a reason not to consider joint ticketing, But in reality, shouldn't you really be working around these if it's going to bring more people through the gate or turnstile and, what's more, keep visitors happy? It's definitely time to stop thinking competitively and start acting collaboratively if you wish to woo the visitor. After all, a share of something is better than all of nothing. So hug the competition. This research finding may also suggest that cluster group marketing would be good for you if you have a group of attractions that are like-minded and have something in common, whether that is a location or a theme, and by that I mean something like heritage, gardens, farm tourism, animals, or art and culture. Here at Catapult PR, we represent Cumbria's living heritage, which is exactly what I'm talking about here, a cluster group of vibrant heritage attractions and grand houses and museums. Whilst initially visitors may intend to only explore one attraction during their time in your area, a joint ticketing approach may persuade them to visit more than one attraction or even multiple attractions, bringing you more visitors than might otherwise be the case. It could also keep you on your toes if your reviews are not then quite as glowing as those of your partners within the joint ticketing initiative. Again, that is no bad thing, as it can set you on the road to improvement. When we ask the direct question, do UK visitor attractions offer value for money? Over a quarter of people in general, and nearly a third of women, answered with a resounding no. In the South East region, that rises to 42%, with the next highest region being the South West, where 29% say they do not get value for money. You can head to our website to download the full consumer research booklet to find out about your region and how it fares on the price v value scales. But even if you are in a region where people believe they get value for money, 1 in 10 of the local people coming through your door will not believe that they do. So we've already talked about offering that wow factor, but what else could you do to deliver better value for money? I would suggest that you start by making sure you have great interpretation throughout your attraction. Ensure that staff interact and become part of that interpretation, as people are a vital part of any visitor experience. Building Q&A sessions with your staff, free talks, quizzes, games, craft activities and so on. A quiz sheet can, after all, cost peanuts. But I would also suggest that you look at initiatives that build loyalty with your visitor base, such as a kids club, complete with newsletter and special offers for families, or local residents discounts that help to make local people feel appreciated by you and your team. It may just be time to create that visitor attraction mascot that you've talked about in the past, but who could become a real hero within a kids club marketing programme, and someone who generates enough pester power to overcome dissatisfaction with the price of admission. Think also about vouchers that offer a visitor a reduced price return visit. Take a look outside too. If you have a car park and can at this moment see people begrudgingly feeding their pound coins into their ticket machine, you already have an issue before they come through your doors. Parking is a true grudge purchase and one that adds to the total cost of a visit. So even by the time they reach your reception desk, your visitors will have some negativity in their head. Let's think further about this scenario for a while, and let's hold the vision of the begrudging car park player in our minds. If they are paying for parking, they have driven to your attraction, but how far have they come? Your own visitor research will probably tell you what your drive time area is and how far people tend to travel to see or experience what you offer. Your marketing may well take the form of leaflets distributed in racks throughout the drive time area. But what could rock that drive time boat for you? We considered this and came up with what is probably the number one issue, the price of petrol or diesel. We asked consumers whether they would be put off and deterred from visiting an attraction located more than 40 miles from their home just because of the price of petrol to get them there. 17% of people said yes, stating that the price of petrol would impact on a decision to visit an attraction more than 40 miles away. And this is probably less than an hour's drive in most cases, well within any typical visitor attraction drive time area. But beware thinking that a 17% drop in visitors is manageable and that you can take that hit to your visitor numbers. A huge 41% of 35 to 44-year-olds say that the price of petrol would put them off, and 31% of 45 to 54-year-olds feel the same way. That's an awfully big proportion of what is probably your parental footfall, and you will need to find new ways to bring people through the doors if your drive time figures plummet. I would go so far as to say that you really do need to focus on your local residents and perhaps adjust your marketing spend to do so. You also need to consider the value for money sentiments that we have already explored to try to overcome the petrol price issue. Think hard about loyalty cards and discounts for local residents, whether these are operated all year round or only available during a certain week or month. Your local schools will also need to be part of this thinking. Can you liaise more with local school teachers? Can you create an education pack that local schools can use to extend their visit through activities undertaken in the classroom? You will need to work hard at your local hospitality provider relationships, inviting hoteliers and B&B owners on a familiarisation visit so they can become local ambassadors and advocates for your attraction. Think also about other referrers of business, such as taxi drivers. Work with other types of local business too, whether that is the newsagent or the local post office or village shop. They may just be the places in which visitors ask the question, what's good to do around here? As part of this thinking, why not take your attraction out into local schools and into the community through outreach activities? Taking something interesting, animal, vegetable or mineral, out and about can provide a taster or teaser that might provoke interest and more conversations around the dining table along the lines of, "Oh mum, can we?" When it comes to the regions most likely to be deterred by the price of petrol, the South East tops the list, with 36% saying it would put them off if they had to make a 40-mile or longer journey. In the North West, it's 18%. So if you are in one of these regions, you will need to work a bit harder than most. The whole area of prices, value for money and petrol concerns will have a huge influence on your marketing success, so it is worth taking time to think it through and assess how you can mitigate the risks that financial concerns present for your visitor attraction. PR will play its part in this, as your messaging should always focus on the value for money that you can provide, as well as the wow moments and must-see and must-do things that you can boast. But PR should also be a contributor. At Catapult PR, we've come up with some great ways in which to enrich the experience that our visitor attraction clients offer, actively contributing to product development at those attractions as a result. We have devised initiatives such as a Young Aquarist of the Year competition, a Wizards on Windermere Harry Potter-like experience, and a Junior Reporters contest judged by celebrity Michaela Strachan and used to support the launch of a brand new feature within an attraction. The imagination needs to run riot to come up with something interesting and engaging, which of course adds that value on which there is no price, whether it is seeing your child convey their passion for animals or watch them interview a TV star with pen and paper in hand. Parental pride is a powerful emotion to evoke. Our fifth point in this part 1 of our podcast on the Catapult PR Visitor Attraction Survey commissioned through Gorkana relates to perceptions. And here we need to look at how perceptions can also have an impact on customer satisfaction and impressions of good value for money or poor value for money. This brings me on to the importance of the service scape, something that I find most visitor attractions ignore to a fairly large extent, and at their peril. There have been various studies that have demonstrated how a venue's physical surroundings, the service scape, helps form the visitor's impression of the hotel, theme park, eatery or visitor attraction and so on that they are visiting. Bittner's work from 1992 is one such study, and you may wish to find that in the library and have a read of that document. It has been shown how these servicescapes affect consumer behaviour and how tangible elements such as toilets, buildings, infrastructure, displays, literature and food and drink give customers clues as to what they can expect from a particular venue or what they feel about it, even sometimes before they step through the door. Intangibles such as service then create the overall impression that the customer gains on arrival at a venue during a visit and even perhaps on the way out. The importance of servicescape cannot be underestimated, but sometimes venues want to shoot the messenger, and I have been that messenger in the past. On arrival at a potential new client's visitor attraction, which happened to be an animal attraction, I noticed that the reception area was extremely tatty, with peeling paint, poor notice boards, ripped seating and a generally dank feel. In my proposal, I suggested that this area, the place where visitors first arrived, if they'd made their way from the car park despite the lack of signage that is, should be given a lick of paint, spruced and tidied up, and made to feel more welcoming, all of which would have cost very little indeed. This advice was ignored and not taken on board as constructive criticism. It was almost a relief when I didn't get to implement my proposal, as within just a few weeks I noted there were TripAdvisor reviews slating the place and suggesting that the animals were kept in poor, squalid conditions, that the place was filthy, and that a general lack of care pervaded the attraction. I do not believe that to be necessarily true, but I can well believe that visitors were led to think that, having been greeted within unkempt and uncared for surroundings that gave off a really bad vibe and created a negative impression from the off. Hopefully this sets the scene for the next part of this podcast, which is about perceptions. Here we looked at some of the tangible hardware, as we can call it, that can provide visitors with clues about a venue and which can potentially impact on their overall view of it. Whilst we could not ask questions about everything, we focused on some important parts of any attraction, the building itself and the toilets. Let's start with the exterior of the building and the bits that the prospective visitor can see and on which they can make a judgment. Our survey discovered that more than 1 in 20 of us has taken one look at the outside of a UK visitor attraction and been so put off by it that they didn't go inside. That may not sound like too many until you consider that in terms of lost revenue, that could have been a friend or a family group accompanying the person who was deterred from entering, so one person could have been responsible for 3 or 4 ticket sales. There are also big regional variations. 16% of those in the southeast have not gone into an attraction because of how it looked from the outside. Some age groups are more judgmental than others too. Nearly a fifth of 25 to 34-year-olds have been deterred from entering an attraction because of the way it looked, along with 15% of the 35 to 44-year-olds. Millennials are therefore particularly receptive to the signals you emit, whilst Gen X are not far behind them. Gone are the days of not paying attention to the exterior of your attraction. Ignore it at your peril. Despite every attraction knowing that they need to keep visitors happy, particularly because many have instant access to review sites right there in their pocket or handbag, the reactions that our Catapult PR survey evoked from those interviewed were truly surprising when it came to views of toilet facilities. The findings really are not a great advertisement for UK visitor attractions. Nearly a quarter of consumers, 24%, believe toilet facilities at UK visitor attractions are typically dirty, unpleasant or insufficient. They also state that this matters to them. Even more women echo this sentiment, with 28% expressing this view. Clean toilets and sufficient facilities are most important to those aged 45 to 54 and 35 to 44, with 45% and 42% respectively feeling let down by toilet facilities at UK visitor attractions. The regions most upset with the state of our visitor attraction toilets are the South East, London and the North West. And again, the full findings can be found in our downloadable PDF at www.catapultpr.co.uk. So what can be done about these areas? Let's look at toilets first. I would suggest that you treat your toilets with as much regard as your exhibits or displays. They will have as big an impression on people if they are not up to scratch, that's for sure. You could actually challenge your team to be the best they can be at providing great toilet facilities by competing in the Loo of the Year awards, and visit www.loo.co.uk to find out more. You can also involve your visitors in reporting any loo issues, with this co-involvement demonstrating that you care about cleanliness and know that a visitor is likely to be the first person to spot a problem. When it comes to the external signals that your building is emitting, look out for signs of wear and tear and shabbiness and do something about them fast. Audit the exterior servicescape of your building and the reception area too with very keen eyes, and do not be afraid to spot the weaknesses in the image that you are projecting. Make sure litter is picked up from outside. Perhaps clean the paving stones outside daily. Keep your reception area tidy and pick up any leaflets that may have fallen onto the floor as soon as that happens. Eliminate any odours and ensure there is nothing else that jars with the visitor, such as loud music if that is nothing to do with your attraction's theme. Keep a watchful eye on the appearance and demeanour of reception staff, as they are your first customer touch point. Ensure visitors are greeted swiftly and not left hanging around at the entrance desk, waiting to be served. Then there is a particular bugbear of my own to take into account, and this is signage. For me, there is nothing worse than not knowing where to find reception and the entrance, or then find the exit and the car park again. If you have a large outdoor attraction, signage is key to prevent visitors wandering around aimlessly and feeling frustrated. It may seem obvious that people want to know which way to go, but I have visited one of the most acclaimed attractions in the country and been left totally frustrated by the abysmal lack of signage outdoors. If it is quite a walk to get around everything anyway, the last thing you want to be doing is walking further than you need to or going around in circles. When that is in pretty torrential rain, it's even worse, believe me. Never assume people will automatically know which way to go. They are visitors, not mind readers. The final section of part 1 of this podcast is focusing on attractiveness and access for all. So what do we mean by that? It may not be necessarily what you think. In the words of the London Underground, our Catapult PR survey through Gorkana found that UK visitor attractions need to mind the gap. Here we're not talking about a physical gap, but an age gap that could be preventing revenue maximisation, with some potential visitors actually feeling almost alienated by some attractions. Nearly 1 in 10 people feel that UK visitor attractions hold no attraction for adults without kids. Actually, 15% of Londoners believe there is nothing of appeal for them at UK visitor attractions, as do 14% of those in the North West. 1 in 5 of the 45 to 54-year-old group think attractions are solely geared towards children. We also discovered that 7% of us haven't been inside a UK visitor attraction since we were children, and we were a little surprised to find that this is 9% of women. The adults most likely to have visited an attraction since childhood are to be found in the East Midlands and North East, where only 1% haven't, a big difference from London, where it is 13%, and the South West, where it is 9%. Given the fact that 45 to 54-year-olds believe attractions are only for kids, it was not too surprising that 16% of this age group have not been inside one since their school days. So what can be done to convince more adults to visit? Obviously you need to find an attractive proposition for them, but if you do, you could achieve a nice uplift in numbers. If you cannot see an adult strand to what you do yourself, work with a creative PR company that has been involved with product creation for visitor attractions and see what they can come up with. Be proactive through PR if you do have something to offer to adults. But I would also say that this is an opportunity for Attractions to appeal to the inner child within most adults and to tap into that inner child through clever PR, to the extent that those who visit you then talk about their experiences and bring other adults to your door. Whilst this is one untapped market, and perhaps the most obvious one, we also discovered another. 1 in 10 of those surveyed said they did not believe said they do believe visitor attractions are only focused on younger children and do not care about the over 10s. 11% of women believe this, and similar figures are to be found in regions like the North East, London and the South East. Within a key target audience for visitor attractions, adults aged 35 to 44, many of whom will be parents, 26%, yes that's more than a quarter, think that over 10s are sidelined by UK visitor attractions. Even more interesting perhaps is that 24% of 18 to 24-year-olds agree, an age group who perhaps remember more keenly what it was like to be an older sibling being taken to attractions catering only for younger kids. So what can you do for these older children? I would suggest that you need to think about the school curriculum and try to find more advanced things for this age group to do whilst visiting. Whilst their younger brothers or sisters look at animals or become occupied crayoning, older children could be budding young reporters, photographers, or even social media commentators provided with hashtags to use whilst putting their story together. You could even maybe reward efforts with a prize if their story is the best of the month or the best of the week. Finally, whilst access for all in terms of disabled access and services such as signing have become part of the visitor attraction landscape, little has been done for visually impaired or blind visitors. Having become aware of a means through which these visitors could use technology to help them access a descriptive narrative of what is in a room or how a painting looks and so on, we asked whether people would like to see visitor attractions incorporating such technology into their offering. More than a quarter said this would be brilliant, with the most supportive being Londoners, where 37% would like to see this. Millennials were the most in favour of such a development, so as they will be your visitor audience for some time to come, perhaps it is time to find out more about the technology available, and I'm happy to point you in its direction if you want to get in touch. So I'm going to leave it there for the first half of our UK Visitor Attractions podcast and let you reflect on the findings we've discussed so far and how these could impact, for better or for worse, on your footfall and the average visitor spend. As I have said, there is the accompanying booklet to download at www.catapultpr.co.uk, but you can also ring me if you have any questions or want a bit of advice. You can call me on 01253 446 925. That's 01253 446 925, and I'll help you as much as I can. Alternatively, you can email me at jane@catapultpr.co.uk or tourismpros@catapultpr.co.uk. It is Jane without a Y, and catapult is spelt CATAPULT. Once again, the email address is jane@catapultpr.co.uk or tourismpros@catapultpr.co.uk. And that is pros as in plural of professional rather than the prose that Wordsworth wrote. All that remains is for me to say that I hope to provide you with the findings from the other half of the survey in our next podcast on this topic. Thank you for listening so far.